Morning, everybody. Rebecca here, Busy Woman's Garden, and I am in the back garden here going to talk to you a little bit about planting for autumn and winter colour. I'm sure, like myself, plenty of you have hanging baskets and pots that might be gone past their best. Actually, these, I had them down because they were holy show, but you can see my hanging baskets there in the background are really poor. Just have to realise, and I forgot to put on my mic. Oh my god. Anyway, never mind. I got the tripod set up today and I'm in a different spot. So one of these days I'll get all the tech stuff sorted. I need a little technical assistant. Maybe I should train up one of the kids for that job. There's an idea. Few bob of pocket money for them. Actually, just put this down. So yeah, so look at this. Is one of my hanging baskets there. So what I just thought I'd run through is what I try and salvage out of them, what I try and recycle from previous pots and plantings, and how I make up the difference, right? So for any of you who've already downloaded the quick guide thing, one of my tips is that if you buy a pot from, filling station or supermarket, I won't name any names now in case anyone gets upset, but if you buy a pot from one of those, as a starting point, if you're busy and you don't have time to be planting up, because really this is not a cost-effective exercise the first time around. Going off buying all your different little bits of ivy and conifers and all of this stuff doesn't really make a whole load of sense when you're starting out. If I were you and you have nothing, I'd go and I'd buy the planted up pots first. You get the instant colour, and you'll also have both the pot and the perennials, the things that last for the following years. And that's what I did and how I started. So I didn't start with a collection. I don't know if you can see, I actually have quite a bit down here on the ground as well. I didn't start with all of these. It's kind of an accumulation. You collect bits along the way. It's like, the knives and forks drawers. There's bits from all sorts of sets now at this stage. So I'll show you one here, right? So this one, right, is like obviously looking a bit shook. I have to say, I do kind of struggle when there's any bit of colour left in them. I am sort of tempted to leave them, but really and truly, I mean, who am I fooling? They're just, they're gone a bit straggly. What I do with something like that where, there might still be another couple of weeks in it left, I'll stick a whole load of bits and pieces in one pot just for a splash of colour somewhere, put it far away because it's not going to look great up close. And then I take out the bits that I can salvage and put them into a new pot. So in this one here I have, you can see a little piece of trailing ivy, and for anyone who might remember back at the start in the end of the spring, that came from a cutting. I took an ivy where I separated out into little bits and pieces and put a bit into every pot. So this was one ivy plant that came in one of those pre-planted planters probably 3 or 4 years ago that I've been separating, and now I have a load of them. So I'll salvage that. I have the lobelias are annuals, that you're wasting your time. They're going to be dead in a couple of weeks, no matter who you are or what you do. That's the life cycle of that plant. So it's not you, it's the plant. This here is a trailing geranium that I propagated last year from cuttings from a previous trailing geranium, and I could easily do that. You can also get geraniums to survive the winter if you pot them up on their own and bring them inside. But to be honest with you, I'm a bit over this geranium, so I'm not going to bother trying to save it this year or take cuttings or anything. If I was stuck for plants or that, I would, but I want to change next year, so I'm probably just going to let it go. So if you're doing that, and you're going to let it go, and you have a compost bin, they can all go in the compost bin with the used compost and, contribute to following year's growth. So that's how you recycle. So out of that, I keep my ivy. I could keep my geranium. The rest would have to go in the compost, I'm afraid. So that's where I'd be starting. I'd have one little geranium to keep me going. Then I don't know if you can see this here. Hold on, I'll pull it out a bit. Okay. So I think you can see it. Sorry, the sun is in my eyes here. I have a pot there with a conifer. You can see here it's starting to struggle, going a little bit brown at the base. It's too big for that pot. But that would have been one of these little, these type of baby ones a few years ago that I've used to plant around, multiple times at this stage. So it's going to come out of that pot. There's a lovely rose in there as well. That's I've cut back. I cut it back even further. And I will probably at this stage, that is nearly getting a little bit too big for my liking. I might put that in the ground. But you can knock years out of them before they are past their prime. One tip for colours, I think, is if you consider the colour of the wall behind the planter you're going to put in, right? So this kind of limey green one looks really nice against the shed colour there. So if you have a bright colour plant against a dark wall, or a dark colour plant against a bright wall, that does make a difference. You know, they show up, they pop out a lot, you know, a lot bigger. The wrong colours can kind of get lost, even if the planter looks fab, I think. So what I will do is I'll take a little conifer, I will take an ivy. Now, I probably would put this ivy with this conifer because I don't think that one goes that great with that colour, right? So that's an ivy. And same thing again, another one that I had in a pre-planted planter years ago, and I keep separating, dividing it out over the years. I actually have 3 or 4 more of these knocking around in other pots that I'm going to recycle now as well. So that would probably go along with that. And then for a little bit of colour along with it, I have these little baby heathers that were in Aldi, but I'm sure all good supermarkets have them. So you can see this nice bit of winter colour. I love these because, oh, I'm just noticing the little, now look, there's a tip, right? It's in a nice little tray, and like I've been left there all week, but that tray is gathering. I thought it had drainage holes in the tray. It actually doesn't. So look at all the water that's inside it right now. That's leaving any plant sitting in water like that is not good for it. So that's the end of that. And a cheeky snail, go on snail. But I keep all these because they're very handy in the greenhouse, you know, when I am planting up seedlings and stuff. But not for, I wouldn't have left them sitting in it, to be honest. So I will combine in a little hanger basket, probably, I'll show you now, this one over here. What's in this one? An amaranthus, the experiment that really, you know, never was. Grew them from seeds, didn't like them. These are another type of trailing dianthus. I could try and save them as well, but you know, I grew them from seed this year. I'm not mad about them. I probably won't bother trying to save them. So I just repot. There's a bit of a trailing geranium making a comeback. This poor basket took a hit during the summer holiday watering fiasco. So I think it'll have to go. So I'll probably put this little conifer, a trailing ivy, a heather, and 1 or 2 little bits of colour. Now, you have to be careful here because colours that are going to, you know, colourful plants that are going to last through the winter, you don't have a huge, massive selection in Ireland or the UK, really, unless you're in the very south of the UK where it might be a bit milder. But for anywhere around here, you're talking about things like pansies or violas, but they're nice colours, like, and they will keep going all winter. And so you'd pick out one. I would probably pick to go with that. I'd probably pick that one there. And then they self-seed as well. So they're while they last the winter, the individual plants get leggy and a bit sort of they're not as nice after a while. So what I will do is, they do self-seed. Little baby ones crop up all over my garden now. Is I just dig up the little baby ones that crop up over the garden and use them for new plants. And then the other thing I will do is here, sorry, there's a lot of plants and I could do with the banquet table for this job. It's going to be a busy weekend here. Cyclamen. I love cyclamen. I think they're gorgeous. They're corms, not bulbs. So I think corms sit close to the top of the soil. So these are ones that were in other pots last year. I just stuck them in their own pots, put them at the back of the shed and forgot about them. And I highly recommend that as a style of gardening. Like, you know, I think obsessing over trying to mind things sometimes does more harm than good. If you put them somewhere and forget about them, most often they'll take care of themselves. So these are Oh my gosh, I hope you can't hear my family all screaming inside. Oh my, it could let you down like a ton of bricks. Anyway, that's the cyclamen. You can see some of them are coming back into flower. They only flower over the winter, so they're much ado about nothing over the summer. I have loads, like I think there's 3 or 4 stuck into that pot. Maybe only 1 out of 2 survived out of that pot, and I have another couple of pots. So you can see I'm recycling things from last year because I stuck them down the back of the shed, or I divided them out of 3 or 4 little plants before, and I have the makings of, I don't know, a good few hanging baskets by topping it up with the heathers and my pansies. So you can, that's one way of getting your colour without spending a fortune. The other thing that I will do, and I know for those of you that have registered for the bulb workshop, thank you very much first of all, but I will underplant them with these little, you can't see them obviously, daffodils. I have little miniature daffodils bulbs in this that I kept over the winter, and I'm going to take them out and you know, put them into a couple of the baskets underneath the other plants, and they'll come up through it. You'd be suspicious they won't, but they will. So that's going to be one kind of colour scheme. And the other one I'm going to go with, actually, here's a good thing to show you, right? So I bought these during the week, little baby conifers, and I love that kind of bluey green colour on a conifer. It's just, you know, personal preference. But I bought it a week ago. It was dry when I bought it. I knew it was a bit dry looking, but I thought, sure, I'd bring it home and water it. But look at the state of it. I'm so disappointed. And I did nothing wrong, right? So I'm somebody who's new to gardening, could come home and think, well, Lord, I have a kill before I even start. And I'm really disappointed because I know that really won't make a comeback till next year. So look, you could go back into the shop with them. I probably won't. I think it was $1.49. So, like, you know, I won't. And I took the risk. I saw it was too dry, and I just thought it didn't look, obviously I wouldn't have bought it if it was brown, but it didn't look that bad, so I thought it was still salvageable. The problem with conifers is that they probably won't get enough growth now to come back for this season. So I'll plant it up in its own little pot, in a better pot than that, and put it at the back of the shed, and I might have it next year. That's going to be my scheme for that. But what I was going to do was make another colour scheme. I'll show you with these guys here. I don't ever know how to say this. Callocephalus or something like that. Callocephalus, maybe somebody else knows the name of that. So I like these. These are really nice, and they last for ages, and you can divide them in other years as well. So you see the bluey grey and the silver always, or bluey green and the silver, I think looks lovely together. And say a white cyclamen or even, you know, a pinky heather, they'd all look lovely together. The good thing about the heathers are perennials. They're the hardiest of everything. If you think of where heathers grow in Ireland, up on hillsides and bogs and all sorts of stuff, they will multiply when you put them in the ground in a couple of years' time. Like you'll have a load of heather if you like it. I like it because it has a bit of colour in it at the time of the year in the garden when there's absolutely nothing else going on. And those plants, I kind of treasure them, you know, because there's times of the year, that's why I like bulbs as well. There's times of the year when there's nothing else to kind of perk you up. So that is that. I have other plants that I will be planting this weekend as well. They're perennials that I thought I'd show you because this is, I think, a bit of a trick to it all as well. I know everyone doesn't have time for seeds and all of that, but this, what I'm talking about, recycling plants, doesn't really take that much time because you're already putting things in and out of pots anyway when you're coming to this stage. So all you need to do is find a spot to keep them in, somewhere out of sight that won't annoy you, because it probably won't look tidy for a lot of the year. And I think that makes a big difference. So here is, remember a long time ago I was doing cuttings on hydrangeas. This is my last year's cutting, but look at now, like it's really starting to come on, that little shrub. And most of that growth was this year. You can see there, do you remember we did the soft growth and the hardwood? So the green wood is the softwood and the brown. So you can nearly see 6 inches of that is this year's growth. So I'm going to pot that on now, give it another bit of a feed, keep it going. Like I'll feed it with, what's the name of the fertiliser? Not the bone and fish and blood stuff. You come back to me, it's not the chicken pellets, I have another one. If you come back to me, sorry, it's gone out of my head. The other things I'm going planting, so we've done the baskets or pots, whatever way you want to do it yourself, or a mixture of all. What I'm talking about now is stuff going into the ground, perennials. So other things I've grown, like these were grown totally from seed this year. They're a lovely flower, there's one that's come on really well, called Penstemon. They they grow really tall, like, well, not really tall, but compared to this, really tall. So they grow to about that, maybe up to a metre high, 70 centimetres, about somewhere between 2 and 3 foot high. And these ones have blue bell-shaped flowers. They all have bell-shaped flowers, but these ones have blue. I have a couple of red ones in other parts of the garden, and I love them because they kind of come up very early in the season and they stay flowering all summer and into the autumn. So hopefully the blue ones will be as good as my red ones. So that's that. Just wouldn't be me without another bit of my Rudbeckia. I found a spot where I don't know why I dug up a bit of it on its own in one little measly pot like this when I have acres of it, but I did. So I have a gap actually for this, so I'm going to plant that in the ground because this is the right time to do all this. And I'm showing you, so that's a plant I dug up. These are plants I did by seeds. These are plants I did by cuttings. And this is kind of the trick to getting your garden filled out without spending a fortune. And when you're not spending a fortune, you're not stressing out as much about it not working out right. You're a bit more inclined to go with the flow. And the more you go with the flow, the more the garden sorts itself out, is my experience of it all. The more, I don't know, hard you try, sometimes the reverse happens. So other things I'm planting are, wait, let's see, where will I go next? I'm going to plant, bits I bought. I actually think this is a lovely looking thing. Don't know if it's going to work. It's called Ficina Ice Crystals. So I have the little strip of a little thin border along my patio that I put in with loads of grasses to kind of take such a sharp straight edge off it, which I actually think really works and looks well. But I put ferns into it that I propagated from another place, from another part of the garden, and it was a silly move. I love ferns, they're lovely and everything, but that's in absolute full sun, and ferns like shade. So I'm going to move them out there because their leaves have been scorched, and they're not going to thrive there. I'm wasting my time. I shouldn't have put them there in the first place. So I'm going to move them somewhere else, and I think I might put this one there. So that's the other thing. I have a lot of pots then to strip out, so I'm taking out my summer bedding and putting in my autumn one. You may well be a lot luckier than me if you still have colour and your pots and I do have some that are still okay. They're just too heavy to drag onto the camera right now. If you have some pots that are still doing well, you don't have to do anything with them yet. It's fine for another month even. But mine haven't. Mine are past their prime, and I can't look at them anymore basically, so they have to go. So I'm getting rid of mine. But if you have them and they're still going, keep deadheading them, keep feeding them, and you could knock out the first couple of weeks of October out of them. Pots, the bigger the pot, the better chance that they'll survive, because the plants that are in a hanging basket are way more exposed. There's a lot less soil in them. There's a lot more plants competing for the nutrients and the water, and they run out of steam quicker than the pots. So the pots are usually, there's deeper wells for them to draw on for nutrients and water. And yeah, that's basically it. I know it's a bit rambly today, but I had a lot of bits and pieces to talk about instead of one particular thing. We'll also be doing, hopefully, fingers crossed, a little bit more with the new border. So I'll send photos or something about that to let you know what we're doing next. So today's supposed to be a nice day here. It's difficult, so another couple of things. When you are planting these up, even in a basket, to watch that there's some bit of drainage in it, because in the winter it'll be wetter, and bulbs and corms usually don't like too much wet. They like to be in sort of free draining soil, because they'll rot. If you think about, like, if you put an onion into a glass of water, after it'll turn to mush. So they need a certain amount to survive, but they don't need too much. So drainage in any pots that you're potting up at the minute is important. And when you're going into the ground, it's a beautiful day here today, and I'm talking about sunbeam in my eyes, but it wasn't beautiful all week. It was a lot of rain, and that makes the ground prone to being damaged. So you can damage your soil structure now by going walking on it. So if you can avoid walking to do your planting, if you can do your planting without walking on your soil, please try and do that, because if you, especially clay soil like we have here, and lots of people have, the soil gets compacted and then the water can't drain off it. And what you'll get is what they call a cap. You'll get a cap of moss or mostly different types of mosses really that will grow on it, and then that stops the light getting down to the plants. So just keep an eye on that. If the ground is wet, especially, try not to walk on it when you're doing your planting. You're going to have to get creative about how you go in, and don't do your back out, and don't sue me if you do your back out. So that is basically it. Have anything else? I did have one last thing to say. My one last thing to say, if you have gladioli, like I have there, hopefully you can see, I still have ones coming. They're kind of coming in dribs and drabs, but I'm not worried. This is my first year with these ones. Like, they were my first live for the people who were here from the beginning. So what you do is you deadhead them. So deadheading means cutting the stalk with the flower on it after the flowers have gone off. You leave the foliage there, and that's a general principle for anything that grows by bulb or corms. You take the flowers off and you leave the leaves. So that means the plant is using the leaves to support bulb development and not trying to use its energy to create seeds. So that's it. That's all my bits and pieces tips today. So I hope that was okay. I know it was a bit bits and pieces. Please ask me questions in the chat and I will answer them. I think I see some stuff coming up on the screen there, but I'm too far back to actually read them. Or maybe I need glasses, but I can't use them. So I'll have a look at them and I'll reply to them. And if there's anything else that you see, anybody who's watching on a replay, let me know and I'll come back, because I know I've kind of jumped around in a few different things. And I'll chat to you later.